Hello everyone, welcome back. Today is my April wrap-up. Last month has truly been the month of audiobooks for me. I have read 10 audiobooks. Well, one of them was with the actual book, but still 10 audiobooks. And then throughout the whole month, I have read 15 books. I have my notes because I need my notes all the time. New notebook, new notebook. Anyways, let's start with the audiobooks and then get to the actual books that I've finished, like physical copies of them. I am happy because I have finished one off my currently reading list of Goodreads, and it's just getting shorter and shorter, and I'll live for that. But audiobooks this month. First, I listened to, I guess, The Good Girl by Mary Kubica. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say her name. And this was a book that was on my TBR for like years. I just never purchased it because, money. So I was extremely happy to have found the audiobook for it. And it was pretty good. It was pretty good. In the last few months, I have listened to a lot of missing girl stories, and it was a little bit uniquer take on a missing girl, taken girl, I guess, case. I don't want to give away too much about it, but it was interesting. It was interesting. It was exciting. I wanted to know, what happened, so I kept listening to it. It was more point of views than just one. It was fun. It was easy to listen to. It was just so good that I listened to it, but it wasn't as good as I hoped it would be, somehow. Somehow it wasn't as amazing as I kind of thought. But it's kind of like my fault because I had made this up in my mind. But it was an enjoyable book. I think I gave it 3 stars. I'm not sure. I don't know how many stars I gave it, but it's, I think, a 3.5, something like that. But it's totally enjoyable. If you like that kind of a thing, I would highly recommend. Then I had listened to a long one, and it was Imagine Heaven, Near-Death Experiences by John Burke. And I'm kind of interested in that kind of a thing, and especially since going through surgeries a lot, I once had kind of an experience where I saw the people who were operating on me, like I just kind of saw the outline of them while I was asleep, which is kind of interesting. It was just a comforting read. It was good to know what other people's experiences were and how it relates to religion. It was interesting. It's truly an interesting thing. Then it was so much fun because I had listened to the Rosie Project, and it was so much fun. Basically, I've read the reviews for this. People say it's as if Sheldon Cooper went on about getting a wife, or if he went dating, like, but for real, seriously, as a profession or something. And it was really unique. It was interesting to be in the mind of the protagonist because he was really, really special. And Rosie was fun, and then the whole thing, the plot was interesting. It has twists and turns. I have the sequel of it as a physical copy, so I'm interested to get into that one with the audiobook at some point later on. But I think I gave it 5 stars. It was so amazing. So highly recommend The Rosie Project. It was a huge deal for a reason, Then I had listened to a Hungarian book, and it was The Secret of the Scarab. It was by a Hungarian author, and I was just in the mood for some Egyptian themed. It was a detective story. It was interesting. It was cool. It was cute. It was easy to get to, so I listened to that. Then something very exciting. Well, kind of very hyped up. Let's just put it that way. I listened to The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. There were many layers to this story, which I loved. But overall, not as good as it was hyped up to be. I gave it 4 stars, but it was really good and enjoyable. But sometimes the hype is just a little bit too much around these books. But I liked it. Then I listened to The Gun Seller by Hugh Laurie, aka Dr. House. And that kind of put me in a reading slump, honestly. It was funny, it was fun, it was a spy-ish story, but it was a little bit forced. It was really, really wanting to be funny. And sometimes it was, but I just felt the whole thing was really, really, really forcefully funny. So, yeah, kind of put me off even listening to books for a while. But there you go. Then, to get me out of that, I had listened to Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and it was amazing. It was one of the best audiobooks I had ever listened to, I believe. It was so cool. It was so amazing. It was about a marriage, and it was a seemingly perfect marriage, but you know that something's happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors. Wow. So it's interesting. It had many layers to it just as well. And it let out the secret, kind of slow releasing the secret of the whole thing, of the whole marriage, and the pace it was written in. So, so perfect. I love this book. This was, I think, best audiobooks and best books I've ever read. Kind of ever, probably. Then A Year in Provence by Peter Moyle. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that exactly. And I read this because I was kind of nostalgic for, the Under the Tuscan Sun kind of a story, and I felt like it would be similar. And it is, because it is an English couple buying a house in Provence. And I felt like the two books are kind of wanting to be each other, even though the Tuscany one was written later. But that was just so much better because it was a lot more personal. It wasn't unfunny, it wasn't unfun, but somehow the Tuscany book was so much more personal, and it was more about the enjoyment of life than just how weird foreigners act, in your opinion, if you know what I mean. But the Tuscany one was more about a personal journey through the whole moving and then finding your life in a different country, and so much more about the enjoyment of life and food, actually, that it was such a more intense experience. But this was fun as well. I would recommend you try it. As if it was food or perfume, but anyways. Then Little Whispers by K.L. Slater. This was kind of similar to Big Little Lies, like suburban wives having secrets. It was fun. I really liked it. It was interesting. It had a twist. It had descriptions of houses. I love I love all of this kind of stuff. So I loved it. I think I gave it 4 stars because it wasn't the best ever, but it was still amazingly good. And then the last one that I had actually listened to but also read the book with it was Treasure Island. And it was surprisingly good, because with these really hyped up classics, I'm like, will I be bored out of my brain while reading this? And you know what? I wasn't. It was actually more about the island, living and being on the island itself, than it was about hunting for treasure. There was no treasure hunt per se, exactly. It was a little bit tactical, but also mostly about living on the island. That was the Treasure Island. And it was easy to read, and it was fun to listen to it, so I loved it. But now to the actual books, to the physical books that I've read. I'm trying to go by, timeline here. So the first one I finished was Chocolat. It's not chocolate, as I kind of remembered. It's Chocolat, I believe, by Joanne Harris. Before this, I don't even know what I've read, but I was kind of like in a reading slump because I think I started a book that I wanted to read and I thought I would like, and I didn't like it and I DNF'd it. I will talk about more of that like next month. But I picked this one up and it was beautiful, beautiful writing. It was interesting. It made me hungry for chocolate all the time. And it is a great book, and it is a movie for a reason. I loved the whole description of France, of their lives, of people's lives, how she's changing everything around herself. It's lovely. Highly recommend. I think 5 stars. I read Journey to the Center of the Earth, and it's such a beautiful copy. I kind of have to show you that it has pictures in it. These are so, so pretty. And I read it in a couple of hours, honestly, probably 2 or 3, I'm not sure. Such a fun book, such a fun read, interesting, amazing, kind of like for children, but I loved it nonetheless. Fun. I finished The Portable Dorothy Parker, and I had annotated just a couple of things, basically like poems and a couple of short stories of hers. And I have to say that I got like a huge crush on Dorothy Parker, having read her writing, her style, her humor, her wit, her confidence. I think it's more like about confidence in her writing and herself that I just love about this. But this was such an amazing work. Since she was such an amazing mind, I truly highly recommend like at least reading a couple of her stories, like her most famous. Like her more famous short stories or even letters were amazing. She wrote letters in such an amazing way. So highly recommend Dorothy Parker on a whole. Then it was of course the Treasure Island, but I've talked about this, but this was the really old kind of vintage looking worn physical copy that I had while the audiobook was going on, and I just held it and it was so cute, so I loved it. And I think I went on to this one next. Agatha Raising Something Borrowed, Someone Dead. All of them are equally great. I love all of these books. I'm just so sorry that, the series will end soon because I have like 4 books left of it. I really cannot say any more about this. This is amazing. English countryside, Cotswold, detective story. Agatha herself is amazing. Highly recommend. 5 stars. Always, always 5 stars. And then, to close out the month, I finished this. This was my hospital book while I was going for treatments. I read this in the waiting room in the hospital. And this is Clique by Lizzie Harrison. And it's young adult, high schoolers, kind of like Gossip Girl. This is the first in the series. I don't think I'm going to read the rest of them. This was just enough. Had I been, a young adult myself, I would absolutely love it. I would have loved it at 12. Not for me, not for my age, but it was fun and I got through fast and I finished it in a couple of weeks, even though I was just reading this at hospital. When I had like 20 minutes to wait, I would get into this. It's fun, easy. If you like this kind of stuff, then if you like Gossip Girl, you might like this. Go for it. So those were the books that I've read in the month of April. I hope you guys like this. This is the video. And until the next one, you know what to do. Read something. Bye-bye.